Hello and welcome to our 66th episode of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. In today's episode, we will talk about Gutenberg 13.1 version, New Zealand, InnerBlocks, and an interesting work in progress with our special guest, Glenn Davis. I'm Birgit Polly-Haag, curator at the Gutenberg Times and a WordPress developer advocate. And I'm here with my lovely co-host, Mary Job. She's also a WordPress advocate, works as support engineer at Paid Membership Pro, and is a community organizer at wpafrica.org. And today, we also have a special guest. I'm thrilled to welcome Glenn Davis to our show. He's from New Zealand, a JavaScript engineer on the Gutenberg project, and the release lead for the Gutenberg plugin 13.1 version. Good evening, Mary. Top of the morning to you, Glenn. And thank you both for joining. How are you today?
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I'm fine too, Birgit. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, Glenn.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome. So Glenn, before we go into the weeds of the plugin release and the rest of the show, I want to ask you a couple of questions about your WordPress journey and about your work on the gallery block. And maybe you can briefly tell us how you came to WordPress and Automattic.
I guess I came to Automattic and then to WordPress.
Oh, okay, the other way around. Yeah.
I had used WordPress quite a few years ago. I was an IT manager for a not-for-profit for a few years, and they needed a blogging platform. So I installed WordPress for them, but that was mostly from a tinkering, setting up point of view rather than development. They didn't really need a lot of development, just a pretty simple blog. Prior to that, I'd done quite a bit of PHP development. I developed an open source learning management system for a university. I don't know if you've dealt with LMSs, you've probably heard of something called Moodle.
Oh yeah.
But that wasn't the LMS I developed.
It was
it's
similar.
Probably the one I developed, I'd probably say mine was the Betamax to Moodle's VHS sort of. Moodle got the community and mine never did. So at one point I said to the university they were wasting their money paying me to be the sole developer of an open source LMS. They should really use Moodle instead. So I sort of did myself out of a job. But
yeah.
I was sort of ready for a change. So I did IT management for a while. That's when I first encountered WordPress. Decided that IT management wasn't really for me, so I went back to development for a couple of big corporates, but sort of got a bit sick of the commute and the crammed office spaces. I think the last office I was in, there was a person sort of 1.5 meters that side and 1.5 meters that side. And 1 meter behind me was other 3 people. You sort of had to say, excuse me, when you pushed your chair out to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of a look around about 3 years ago for remote work positions, and Automattic came up, and looking through the Automattic creed, just the whole philosophy and culture really sort of rang true for me. So I took a punt and applied and managed to get a position. That was about 3 years ago.
Oh wow, yeah. So that is in the middle of the new development of Gutenberg, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it was some of the early releases were sort of going out.
Yeah. So that kind of brings up the question that that I had, or that a lot of people had, is how do you migrate, or how do you get from a PHP developer to a JavaScript developer, or a mixed for the Gutenberg blocks and custom blocks and all that?
Yeah, for me it wasn't, because like I said years ago, I did a lot of PHP, but then when I came back to development, I went almost sort of straight into just JavaScript front end. It was sort of just a big learning curve of diving in. So for me, coming to Automattic and WordPress, it was almost the reverse. I had to go back from doing JavaScript to some PHP stuff.
Oh yeah, okay, I get that. Yeah, all right. Yeah, did you have contact with other people in the WordPress community in New Zealand?
No, because unfortunately I started 2019 and spent the first 8 or 9 months just really getting to grips with WordPress. And then, of course, COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this year, New Zealand, like most countries, has opened up quite a bit. So hopefully there'll be some local WordPress events I can get along to.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I hope that for you too. Yeah, because you're probably not coming to work from Europe.
No, not this year.
Yeah. There is actually a good friend of the Gutenberg Times, so to speak, Ellen Bauer. She is the owner of the Elmer Studio, and with her significant other, Manuel, they have quite a few themes and she was one of the early adopters of Gutenberg as well as the block themes. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how far away you were, but yeah, she's definitely she migrated to New Zealand a long time ago. Yeah. So,
it'll be good to catch up with some local events this year.
Yeah, well, keeping the fingers crossed that that's possible.
Yes.
So, so you and me, Glenn, we collaborated a little bit on working on the gallery block in trying to figure out how to let the community know that there will be a change. And you converted the first version, which came out 2018, had not particularly been developed much after that, and it now uses a single image block with InnerBlocks, and it came to WordPress core in 5.9 in January. So it's such a richer experience and has all the features that the image block has is now coming to gallery block, and you can kind of change each image and also have the styles for it. I had the feeling that the journey wasn't a particularly easy one, from especially around backwards compatibility, inner blocks, and deprecating blocks. What did you learn, and what advice would you give developers working on version 2 for the list and the quotes, and the developers building custom blocks?
Well, I learned that it's not as easy as it looks.
That's life for you, right there.
Yeah. There were a whole list of sort of open issues of people saying, oh, we need the gallery to be able to do this, and an image in a gallery, we need to be able to do that. And I sort of looked and thought, well, you can already do that on the image block. So why aren't we just wrapping the image blocks rather than because there was almost a whole lot of copy and pasted code to duplicate stuff between images in the gallery. So I thought, I might as well have a go and see whether we could use InnerBlocks, which the initial setup was pretty straightforward, but yeah, there were a whole lot of gotchas in actually getting it to run properly. And then when we looked at the backwards compatibility, the main issue we had was with the mobile app. So the big learning was just how different the Gutenberg editor in the mobile app is from the web editor. Mm-hmm. In terms of the fact that you have a whole lot of different versions of the editor out running in people's apps that haven't been upgraded. And the editor has no way, currently the editor has no way of knowing what to do with a block it hasn't encountered before. So in the mobile app, it would get the gallery that had InnerBlocks and think there's no content because it didn't recognize the blocks. And Android quite nicely, or it thought it was being quite nice and auto-saving as soon as it opened it.
So overriding whatever's there, yeah.
Yeah, it would say, oh, it's a gallery, there's nothing in it, save, and it would lose all the people's images. So there was a lot of working with the mobile team to work out how do we stage deploying the new version so that people on the mobile app don't lose their data. Mm-hmm. So one of the big learnings was just the issues with compatibility. In the meantime, Dennis, I think you had Dennis on the podcast a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He's done quite a bit of work to make the editor a bit more robust to be able to cope with blocks it doesn't recognize. So rather than just losing the data, just say, hang on, I don't recognize this, I'll just ignore it for now and leave it as it is.
Yeah, just display what I have, and then the plain HTML. So yeah.
So hopefully it'll slowly start to ease. But I know the quote block people had the developers that have converted quotes to InnerBlocks have had the same issue with mobile, as they've had to stage the deployment so that the mobile versions don't lose the data.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
But one of the other big learnings was just how well the whole community works together. It's like it was a pretty big change, but it wasn't too hard to get the people that needed to be involved and work through the issues together. And then pinging the likes of yourselves to say we need to let the community know, and knowing that you took that bit on board and ping the relevant developers and let them know.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see that most of the theme developers that plugin developers and also theme developers that I reached out to, they already were aware that there's something coming, and they were testing quite a bit on the Gutenberg plugin. Yeah, so when it came to 5.9, there was no surprises on not particular on that part. Well, but we were not able to reach all of the people, but I think it was a good chunk of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
So
yeah.
I held my breath when the 5.9 release went out.
Say that again.
I held my breath when the 5.9 release went out. I thought, oh, I hope this is going to work.
Yeah.
It's a pretty heavy block. Like, there's a lot of people use gallery blocks, so it was a bit nerve-wracking pushing out such a major change, but it seems to have gone reasonably smoothly.
Yeah. Yeah, the backwards compatibility on the desktop version or on the web version, yeah, that was quite nicely. I was really pleasantly surprised at what I can do in addition what I was doing already on the gallery block. So it was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think I have a question for Glenn, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Because you said you came into WordPress 3 years ago. Would you say, coming from all that kind of development into WordPress, would you say WordPress has a steep learning curve, or was it like smooth and,
Yeah, a reasonably steep learning curve, because although it's JavaScript and React, which I'd used before, there's a reasonable amount of complexity in Gutenberg. It's a pretty impressive project when you look at the depth and the breadth of it, what it's actually doing. Even having worked on it for 3 years, there's some parts of Gutenberg that are just a black box to me. Yeah, there's parts I haven't had to touch, and I've got no idea what they're doing. And if I had to actually do some debugging in that area, there's quite often quite a bit of work to think what's actually happening here, what's going on. But having said that, I think it wraps really well some of that complexity, and then allows the block developers to do an awful lot of fairly clever stuff with a minimal amount of work. For instance, like the new block supports are fairly impressive. Previously, if you wanted to have borders and background colors and text colors, you had to copy and paste a whole lot of code. Now it's just a matter of adding a few flags to your JSON file, and suddenly your block has borders and background color and text color.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I really love the development on the theme JSON file and all the configuration that goes in there. Yeah, and it works very well with classic themes as well. Yeah, so it's a really good way how that works. Yeah.
So it's sort of an interesting mix of complexity and simplicity. So there's some really complex stuff going on in the background, but it's been wrapped quite well to allow a nice simple API for block developers. Yeah.
Do you have another question, Mary?
No. I was just thinking how impressive that is.
Yeah. So, well, let's get started with the rest of the show. It's so glad you're here. So we have one announcement that just made it in. If you want to test the features that are in Gutenberg 13.1, head over to the latest call for testing from the FSE, from the full site editing program, and it's called Rallying Recipe Reviewers. And this call for testing focuses on taking a few blocks, amongst them the list view in this and the quote blocks in the second version, and practically spin it up with fun for an interactive recipe focused site where you can customize the commenting experience and for a very interactive site. The instructions are from Anne McCarthy again, and it's the 14th of these testing calls, and they are very detailed and they get you really into the topic of things. And it just was published yesterday, and you have about 3 weeks to comment on this and try it out. So I'm just kind of of course, as always, The link to the post will be in the show notes. And yeah, so that's the announcement for today. What else do we have?
Oh, we have on community contributions. So
right.
our fellow WordPress podcaster, Nathan Wrigley, over at WP Tavern Jukebox podcast, talked to Aki Amano, who is a plugin and freelance developer from Japan. Amano also has some great blogs in the repository. 3 years ago, he created a rich text extension plugin when Gutenberg only had rudimentary color, spacing, and border controls. And he also has a flexible table block. So he also has this amazing block plugin, Piano Block, which I actually just tried today, and it was fun. I didn't want to leave the post editor. What this does is it adds a musical instrument to your editor screen, and you can take a break from content creation and make some music in between. And this block doesn't show anything on the front end, which makes it a really fun project. Have you tried that plugin, Bridget or Glenn? I thought that was fun.
I have not tried it, but Justin Padlock actually wrote a separate blog about it a month or so ago, blog post about it. And he has a video where he tried to do a music thing. And I'm not saying which one, because you might want to go there and kind of try it out. Yeah.
What about you, Glenn? Have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried it. I did see the WP Tavern article about it. Yeah, I must give it a go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it today and I didn't want to stop playing. I felt like a genius. You know the saying, is it all work and no play makes Jack a double? I remember that when I saw that. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes when you're stuck on developing or trying to write something, and you kind of distract yourself and you come back, it's coming there. Yeah. So
yeah, it makes for a perfect break time. I mean, because there are times when you're stuck, like, okay, it's not working, and then I just want to take a walk. I mean, I could take a break and then play some piano.
All right.
On the podcast, Nathan and Aki also talked about what the developer journey learning and building blocks was like. As always, we're going to put the link to this in the show notes so you can always read. It was quite entertaining listening to them.
Great. Yeah. So that brings us to the section, what's released. And so we had 2 releases. One was WordPress Beta 3. Do you want to talk about it, Mary, or?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well,
so
yeah. the notes.
The Beta 3 release comes with a few bug fixes that was discovered in the previous betas. It now has the pared down version of WebFont's API. I believe we've talked about this in past episodes, which allows team developers to register team style variations, including typography, with their team.json file.
Yeah, we talked about it last episode, where it wasn't clear if the WebFont's API actually would make it into 6.0. And
yes.
Yeah.
So the team is working tirelessly to bring all the dev notes to the field guide and list other interesting changes in time for the release candidate that will be coming on the 3rd of May. And just in case you're wondering, WordPress 6.0 is scheduled to come to your WordPress instance on the 24th of May 2002. I'm quite excited to try it out and see what new exciting features it brings. So WordPress 6.0 is not as big as 5.9, but it has a lot of exciting new features. And Makati also published a video with the highlights on YouTube, if you want to check that out.
Yeah, and we talked about it two weeks ago, and what our favorite features are. Glenn, do you have a favorite feature for the 6.0 version?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head. I've sort of been there was so much in 5.9, and I've been sort of doing a bit of background stuff.
Yeah, I really like, and I haven't looked at it before, but I found that there are actually quite some writing experience improvements in there. Yeah,
actually, now that you mentioned that, the partial block selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is probably there's been so many times over the last few years where that's come up as you can't select partial blocks. Yeah.
if you want to, over 2 paragraphs or something like that, and want to have something italic or bold that is half a sentence above and the other half below. Yeah, you couldn't do that. And it's now possible, and you can do all, that's one of the things. And the other one is the double bracket shortcode to have a list of all the posts or pages that are on your site to link to it, to do inner links. Yeah, so that is actually quite nicely done. So, but we will talk about it when it's out again. So you will find quite a few things will be published right around that. The about page, and then marketing is working on their releases for that. So we also had the Gutenberg 13.1 release. It was released on yesterday, also April 27th, and release lead, Glenn Davis. Thank you so much. How is that release experience when you do it as a developer?
Oh, it was my first time at it, so I was sort of a newbie. So luckily the documentation's pretty straightforward, and I was sort of lucky that it was a reasonably small release, because 13.0 was the release that went into WordPress 6. So doing the release that's going to go into the WordPress core release is usually a big job. So I was lucky I got the one just after that. It was recent.
And I think only a few PRs were backported to 6.0. There were still some bug fixes or so. So what brings, we have definitely some enhancements coming, even it's a small release, but it's the design tools for borders. There's a new border control component in the block support thing. So it can also be configured with the theme JSON for individual blocks, like the column blocks you can have in your theme JSON settings for the blocks. You can say a standard variation on the border configuration, which is really nice. There is also for the duotone, there are 2 things for duotone. There's a new icon for the filter on the image block. And the other one was that the duotones now render in the site editor when you use it as on a placeholder. So if you have a featured image placeholder or other media and text placeholder or something like that, and use the duotone for it, it will show you in the editor as well.
The block library also had some enhancements. I'm particularly excited about the comments, the fact that you can now style the comments area, because I know in the past when I first started creating WordPress sites, people would tell you, no, the comment section is too boring. Can you make it brighter, or can you change? So this is actually interesting because you don't have to use third party. Well, you can still use them if you want, but having it in core means that you don't have to go all out to style the comments area on blog posts. The category section also had an enhancement. There's now an option to show or hide empty categories. Previously, in the past, if a category has no post, it was hidden. But now you can now choose to show or hide categories that are empty. So that's also interesting. Yeah, this particular one, the styles, this enhancement to styles. Okay, I didn't quite get this. You mentioned duotone earlier. Can you expand on this one? Because I tried reading about it, but I wasn't quite sure what it was referring to here.
Yeah, you can do a preset for the duotone in the theme JSON. So when you have a duotone filter for the image, you can kind of set that with a theme JSON and reference foreground and secondary, for instance, colors. So you can, that only that is available. A lot of people have real stomach ache when they envision that people who edit a site can come up with all different kind of crazy combinations for the duotone or for the gradients. So having a way to standardize that for a whole site, that is now in the theme JSON. So you can kind of switch off the duotone kind of settings, and then for the editor, but still have duotone settings for the images, if you allow that. Does it make sense?
Yes, it
okay,
does.
Good. Yeah, some on the other styles changes, they were all a little bit more cosmetic. And do you have anything that you want to point out there, Glenn or Mary?
But probably just highlighting again what you've already mentioned, the borders.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that there's now the ability to set each of the borders separately,
Yeah.
both in the UI and in the theme JSON.
Mm-hmm. And did you test that specifically as well? Because I have a question on it, and that was a question that's actually on the release post. Is there a way to also get some styles in there, like a double or outset or dotted line in that?
Yeah, so you can change it to solid, dashed, or dotted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think adding it to columns is quite good, I think, because it's quite a good showcase of it, because columns is an obvious place where you only want one border as a division between each of the columns.
Yeah.
So I think it was quite a good block to get that into, to sort of showcase
Absolutely.
why you might want borders on a specific edge.
Yeah. And then there were also quite a few changes, accessibility improvements that included the resolve around the focus loss problems that have been experienced for the installing blocks from the directory or creating pages from a link. Or there were quite a few situations where all of a sudden the block editor would lose focus and a screen wouldn't know where to be and how to handle that. And so that there have been quite a few fixes there. Yeah. And then documentation, what I saw was that you fixed up some of was it in this release that you, Glenn, wrote about the deprecated blocks, that you fixed up the documentation for that? What's this for this release?
No, I think that was a couple of releases ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that definitely helps some of the developers to figure out how to deprecate the versioning for static blocks, which is still a little bit of a cumbersome.
Yeah, that was one big learning from the gallery block that forced me to work out how deprecations work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's slightly different to how deprecations and migrations work in software in general. So
yeah, and I wish they had kind of written a blog post about your learning and the frustrations about it, because I think that's what a lot of developers have in the community as well.
Yeah, maybe I might take the time to do that. Yeah. Our team set up a blog to try and document some of our experiences. Mm-hmm. So perhaps I'll take the time to go back and go through that. There is some discussion about improving the deprecation migration process. Yeah,
but there's nothing yet kind of that surfaced it, right?
No, there's an issue, and there was a bit of discussion about it with some agreement, but it's a little bit confusing.
A little bit confusing. I think that's the understatement of the year.
Yeah.
You're not English, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but there were quite a few documentation updates in this release. One was about the new ancestor property for the block metadata, and the other one was about the inserter argument for the patterns, where you can hide patterns that are with your theme. To set the inserter setting to false, then users won't be able to find the pattern in the inserter, but you can still use it on template and template parts. And that is documented. It's also documented. The updates for the theme JSON file has been updated, as well as documentation around the individual block locking sections. So if you are interested in that and want to that's the state of the art, kind of learn how that is, check out the documentation and follow the links. So in the release post to get to that. Code quality, is there anything that's stood out to you that you feel, oh, that's a neat thing?
No, probably more on the testing side of it.
Testing, yeah.
Which is sort of related to code quality, and that's the migration to using Playwright.
Yeah, how is that going?
That's making good progress, and it's going to make the writing of the end-to-end tests and debugging of them significantly easier. So it'll be good once that's completed.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see kind of a primer on how to use Playwright and how to write the tests. not only for, of course, for the Gutenberg project, but definitely for contributors on the Gutenberg project, but definitely also if you want to use it also for their own projects, to how to get into that testing part.
Yeah, which I'm sure that'll be coming once the whole migration project's finalized and underway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine there's quite some foundational work that needs to be done before that can be migrated totally. Yeah, I think that was. So anything we forgot? Kind of, there's some developer experience for the local environment. Now you can have a environment env core environment variable. I'm thinking that's probably about the version. And then the grade block scaffolding tool has been updated to fix all the warnings and errors that are reported during the scaffolding and validation. So it's all a little nicer now. All right. Yeah. So that concludes our session. What was released, or the session part, and we can now go and discuss what's active in development, what's work in progress, and what people can look forward to. So one is a PR called a visualizer for the padding. Riyadh is working on that. So when you are changing the padding for a block, it shows you a visual representation of that, how it looks in the editor around the block. So if you say 20, how does that look? 20 pixels or 1 for that side? Because there's padding, there is margin, and then there is block gaps, and all those three things, if you are using that in the sidebar, can be confusing. Where did I change things? And if you have a visualizer, it's very obvious how you change things, and those changes are easily then replicated or even controlled. So that's definitely something to look forward to. I'm not quite sure how far that is. It definitely, it has been merged, so this will come in a 13.2 version, Gutenberg version, and it's the same version that will have the persistent preferences and user meta. And that was kind of a kind of hurrah on Twitter when one of the developers discovers that is coming. We have all been waiting for. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the welcome guide popping up in all kind of different situations when you have a new browser, you have a new computer, you have just changed the browser settings, and here it comes. Welcome to the block editor. You have been using it for 4 years and it still wants to welcome you. It was kind of an annoying thing. It's also, that's one of the obvious things, but the other part is also your settings for the top toolbar. When you are in the editor and you go from block to block, there's a block toolbar. And sometimes that's a little bit disconcerting for content editors. You can actually glue it up to the top through the settings menu. And it was also just stored in local storage on the browser. And you had to do it again over and over as well. Now this is changing. With 13.2, those settings will be stored in the user metadata in the database. So it will remember. You go away and you come back, it will remember. And it's quite a few people said, okay, it's about time that it comes. I know why it was a little bit delayed, because these are settings for the editor, and there are editors. There's a widget editor, there's a site editor, there's a template editor, there's a block editor, and a post editor. There are a lot of editors that first needed to be unified before you could actually standardize the persistence for it. So, but 3 years ago, there wasn't a widget editor, there wasn't a site editor. So back then, I think the developers didn't have enough information to make that a good way to start out. So waiting was probably a good decision to not get into technical depth with backwards compatibility promises and all that. Yes, but we're all happy about that. Sarah Gooding has the story already on WP Tavern. We share the links, of course, in the show notes. And the last thing that I have, so there is also, so when you use a theme, and you edit it with the global styles or with the styles thing, all the information is stored in the database. And only when you export it, all the changes will come into the theme JSON. It's in the works is a save theme edits from the site editor to the theme files when it's in a so-called developer mode, making it a little bit easier for designers to visually update a theme and then have that and then update the theme files per se, be it the JSON file or template parts or template files, so it can be exported or can be reused, but doesn't have to be an export, and then there will just be a save button, and you can switch it off with a development flag mode true or false. That's also in the works. We will share the PRs for it, so you can comment on it or chime in the show notes. So Jenning Ritter has updated the design share on the Make blog for design, and you will see some things that they're working on with the Figma files or Figma links. One of them is also, it's the element state exploration, kind of how can the interface look when you want to change the hover or active setting for elements like a menu or a link or something like that. Mel Joyce has updated some WordCamp block patterns in Figma, and there's also a discussion of revising the global style panels. And what I like is, or what I really pleasantly surprised on how far the work has been done, is the design for documentation and handbook pages. Estella Ruela has the Figma file shared with the design team, and it's all in the design of the new news theme. I don't know if you saw the news theme, wordpress.org/news has had a recent design, and now all the designers are working on replicating that for the rest of WordPress.org and make.org. So it's really cool. Anything else? Glenn, what are you working on now that the Reese is out and you're working on certain projects?
The team that I'm currently on, we're working on global styles and design tools. So the big project we're currently working on is something called the Style Engine.
Right, yeah.
Which is sort of a way of trying to bring together all the different styling elements of a block. Because at the moment, it's a bit, there's sort of styles in quite a few different places, particularly with static blocks. Mm-hmm. There are some that actually are applied to the static content. There's class names that are applied, there's inline styles that are applied. The sort of nirvana would be that the actual static block content had very little styling actually saved within it. There would just be some meta information, and the styles are then applied at the server end. Mm-hmm. And it could be a lot cleverer then about which styles are output with the page based on what block content was there. At the moment, there's a lot of redundant style content has to go with the page to cover all the possibilities of blocks that might be there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work around trying to rationalize that and say, well, let's only output the CSS that's actually needed for this particular page content. Yeah,
I know that some theme developers are really having a hard time with a few block changes. Yeah, every release there is a change that they have to update their themes and either take away classes or find classes, or all of a sudden it's all overwritten with important kind of thing.
Yeah, it was there's some discussions going on. There's been some really good input from theme authors about what the difficulties they're having. So that's feeding in really well to this work around the style engine. And there's all those ongoing questions about backwards compatibility and the API. So it's a reasonably big project. So not at the moment, there's sort of no definite timeframes. We have the basic style engine in place, but then we've got to go through the process of how do we move all of the existing blocks to use this new
style,
this new way.
Yeah, this new way, and what to do with the old ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the static blocks, they don't update themselves. You need to touch them before they update themselves, right?
Yeah. It's sort of a needed project, but it's a big project, and it's a matter of working out how do we stage it. Rather than go away for 2 years and work on the style engine, and by the time we've finished, everything's moved on. It's the usual thing with software development. What are the little pieces we can do to actually keep this thing moving and release pieces along the way, rather than disappear for a few years and we get to create a massive project that never actually completes.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, no, but it's good. But I know there was some discussion, and we had also discussed it here a bit with the proposal from Mark Root-Wiley. I think he did some foundational thinking about that. And there was quite a good summary, but also the ideas that he had in terms of how that could be implemented, or what a theme developer would need. Yeah, that I think that post really informed about that, to make it as close as possible for how theme developers work on things. Yeah,
that generated some really good discussion. And what we've done is split that up into about 4 different areas, because there were some quite distinct parts within that. So we've tried to split that into separate issues to deal with each of them separately.
Yeah.
So hopefully some progress will be made.
Excellent.
In coming releases on those.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, to maybe write about things, or have some dev notes that I could wrangle about soon. So, okay, so I think we are at the end of the show. Glenn, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and wants to reach you, what would be the best way to do that?
Well, the Twitter handle at Glenn Davies NZ.
All right. And you also, are you often on the WordPress Slack community?
Oh, yeah, all WordPress Slack, same.
Yeah,
same. The Glenn Davies NZ. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And
ping me there.
Before I let Glenn go, I hope you don't mind my asking. So my question again is on your background, right? I hope you don't mind my asking. In my part of the world, we have a lot of people who are learning development actively. It's like an escape over here. Like, okay, if I can get a normal day job, maybe I can learn development and make something out of that. If you were to meet somebody who is starting to learn development today, let's say the person is in their first or second year of learning, would you recommend WordPress development to such a person? Like, is it something you would say, okay, maybe you could actually build a career in WordPress development? Do you think that's, because people are very skeptical here when you say WordPress developers, like, what's a WordPress developer? It's not common. It's not like everywhere as opposed to other development languages.
I'd definitely recommend it, particularly the likes of the Gutenberg project. So like, if you can get involved in the project and pick up some small issues, there's some reasonably simple things that come through. And if you can start putting up some PRs with some simple fixes, it's a sort of reasonably easy way to get into a development community. And then if you start getting some of your PRs accepted, and it's a pretty friendly and accepting developer community. There's some other developer communities where you might put up some simple PRs and get lambasted for doing things the wrong way, but you're not going to, from my experience, you're not going to get that in the WordPress community. You're just going to generally get help and support. So I think that there would definitely be a way to actually get into development in a bigger way. Plus, it's real life and it's a real project, so can't help but improve your CV or your resume if you can say, well, I've been actively involved in this project for the last year, and here's the 10 PRs that I've had accepted and merged.
That's a very good question. Thank you, Mary. And I like the answer. There's actually a label in the Gutenberg repository that says good first bugs. So scouting through those, or just kind of pulling up and see if something moves you or something you were interested in, is definitely, try to pick that up. There are also other ways to start contributing to WordPress. I always have to say that it doesn't have to be code. But if you're a developer, code is definitely one thing, but it also could be testing quite a bit. So there are also labels that says needs testing. means, okay, we need some more reports and what configuration or something like that. Is that reproducible, especially for the bug reports? So the developer who picks that up has a better inkling on how to attack that. So that's also a good way to get started. If you don't know the project yet, I think doing it from a user point and test it for some bugs is definitely a good way to get in there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. Anything else? How can people reach you, Mary? Anything from your side that you want to announce and let people know, our listeners know?
Not a lot. We recently had a diverse speaker training group hold a meetup for the Lagos, some cities in Nigeria, and also Kigali here. That was interesting. They had a lot of good feedback. Like I said, we're actively trying to grow the WP Africa community. I personally want to get to know people who are doing WordPress on this continent, and maybe we can have that WordCamp, maybe in 2024.
All right. Yeah, and if you are listening from Africa and you want to be part of it, wpafrica.org is the website with all the information about it. And you can also get Mary on Twitter, Mary O'Job is the Twitter handle. And as always, the show notes will be published on gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. And this is episode 66. And if you have questions or suggestions or news you want us to include, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Glenn. It was a great pleasure to have you and talk to you. And thank you, Mary, for being with me again on this podcast. And it's for me. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Take care.